You get paid, and for a brief moment, everything feels okay again. You open your banking app, look at the number sitting in your account, and suddenly there's this small feeling of relief, maybe even optimism. You tell yourself, all right, this month might actually be different. But then reality starts moving fast. Rent gets deducted, credit card payments hit, subscriptions renew automatically. You order food because you're exhausted from work. A few small purchases happen throughout the week. And before you even realize it, that paycheck is almost gone. Now here's the scary part. Most people think they have an income problem. But honestly, a lot of people actually have a payday problem. Because the moment money arrives, emotions take over. You feel rewarded. You feel relieved. You feel like you finally deserve to enjoy yourself after working so hard. And look, that feeling is completely normal. But this is exactly where people unknowingly destroy their financial future. Not through one massive mistake, but through hundreds of tiny emotional decisions made right after getting paid. Here's the thing. Your paycheck is not just money. It's a test of priorities. And most people fail that test before the first week is even over. My name is Demas, and I spend way too much time thinking about money. If you're someone who feels stuck financially, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Look, most people who struggle financially are not lazy. They wake up early. They go to work. They deal with stress every single day. And at the end of the month, they still wonder why their financial situation barely changes. That's the frustrating part. Because from the outside, it feels like they're doing everything correctly. They earn money. They save a little. They try not to overspend. But somehow, they still feel financially trapped. And honestly, that confusion creates a dangerous cycle. Because after a while, people start believing that financial freedom is only possible for high-income earners. But here's what most people don't realize. Your financial life is usually shaped more by your habits than your salary. And the habits that matter most happen immediately after payday, not months later. Not at the end of the year, right after the money hits your account. Because that's when emotions become strongest. And emotions are expensive. Here's what most people do on payday. They treat it like a reward. And honestly, emotionally, that makes perfect sense. You've been working all week, maybe all month. You've dealt with stress, deadlines, annoying coworkers, exhaustion, traffic, pressure, and finally the paycheck arrives. So your brain immediately switches into relief mode. You think, I deserve this. And that's where the spending begins. Not necessarily reckless spending, just emotional spending. A nicer dinner than usual, ordering food instead of cooking, buying something online because it was on sale, upgrading things that technically still work fine. Individually, none of these decisions seem dangerous. That's why most people never notice the pattern. But over time, these small emotional purchases quietly consume the exact money that could have changed your future. And here's what's really interesting. Most people don't overspend because they're irresponsible. They overspend because spending temporarily removes stress. For a short moment, buying something creates comfort, excitement, or control. But the problem is that emotional relief disappears quickly, and then the financial anxiety comes back again. So people repeat the cycle every payday without realizing they're trapped inside it. Now you might be thinking, okay, so should I focus on investing? Or should I pay off debt first? And honestly, this is where personal finance becomes confusing for a lot of people, because the internet loves simple answers. People online will tell you, just invest, just save, just stop buying coffee. But real life is not that simple, because money decisions are emotional before they are mathematical. For example, someone can fully understand how investing works and still panic the moment the market drops. Why? Because humans naturally hate losing money more than they enjoy gaining it. This is called loss aversion, and it affects almost every financial decision we make. Another problem is instant gratification. Your brain constantly wants rewards right now, not 10 years from now, not retirement someday. Right now. That's why spending money feels emotionally satisfying immediately, while saving money often feels boring and invisible. Here's what most people don't realize. Financial success usually has less to do with intelligence and more to do with behavioral control. Because most people already know what they should do. The hard part is doing it consistently when emotions get involved. And that's exactly why systems matter more than motivation. So here's the first thing you should do every single time you get paid. Pay your future self first, immediately. Not after shopping. Not after bills. not after having fun for a little bit. First, because here's what most people don't realize. If money stays in your checking account too long, your brain automatically starts treating it like available spending money. And once that happens, emotional spending becomes much harder to control. That's why financially successful people often automate everything. Not because they have stronger willpower, but because they understand human psychology. They remove temptation before temptation has a chance to grow. So the moment your paycheck arrives, automatically move a portion into savings, investments, retirement accounts, even if it's small. Because consistency matters more than perfection. And honestly, this changes more than just your bank account. It changes your mindset. You stop seeing saving money as whatever is left over. Instead, you start treating your future like a financial responsibility. And that's a massive psychological shift. Because once you prioritize your future first, spending starts becoming intentional instead of emotional. Let's break this down with real numbers. Imagine you have $5,000 in credit card debt with a 24% interest rate. At the same time, you're investing money into the stock market hoping to earn around 8% annually. Now, logically, a lot of people think, well, at least I'm investing. But here's the thing. If your debt is growing faster than your investments, you're financially moving backward even while trying to move forward. That's what most people don't realize. A guaranteed 24% loss from debt is mathematically worse than chasing uncertain 8% investment returns. And this is where it gets really interesting. People often underestimate how aggressive high-interest debt really is. Credit card companies are incredibly patient. They don't need you to miss payments completely. They just need you to stay trapped making minimum payments for years. That's where they make their money. But now let's flip the situation. Imagine your debt is only a low-interest student loan at 3%, and your employer offers a retirement match. Completely different story. Now, ignoring the employer match is basically rejecting free money. This is why personal finance is never one size fits all. The smartest financial decision depends on the numbers, your emotional stability, and your long-term behavior. Here's something most people completely misunderstand about wealthy people. A lot of broke people look rich, and a lot of wealthy people look surprisingly normal. Because real wealth is usually invisible. It's not the luxury car, not the designer clothes, not the expensive watch posted on social media. Real wealth is ownership, cash flow, investments, low stress, freedom, options. But modern culture constantly pressures people to look financially successful instead of actually becoming financially secure. And Payday makes that pressure even stronger. The moment people get paid, they unconsciously want to reward themselves with visible upgrades. A nicer phone, better shoes, a more expensive lifestyle. Because emotionally, spending can feel like proof that your hard work is paying off. But here's the problem. If every raise immediately increases your lifestyle, your financial stress usually stays the same. That's why some people making six figures still live paycheck to paycheck. Their income increased, but their spending increased right alongside it. This is where it gets really interesting. Wealthy people often focus less on looking rich and more on building systems that protect their future, because they understand something most people ignore. Money is not just about comfort. It's about control over your life. So here's what the actual payday routine should look like. Simple, structured, and realistic enough to repeat every single month. First, the moment your paycheck arrives, automatically transfer money into savings and investments. Immediately. Because if you wait until the end of the month to save money, there usually won't be much left. Second, pay your essential bills right away. Housing, utilities, transportation, insurance, anything that protects your basic stability. This step matters because financial stress often comes from uncertainty, not just low income. Third, aggressively attack high-interest debt, especially credit cards. Because high-interest debt quietly grows in the background while most people underestimate how expensive it really is. Fourth, give yourself a fixed amount of guilt-free spending money. And honestly, this is important. Because if your financial system feels too restrictive, you'll eventually rebel against it emotionally and overspend anyway. And finally, track your net worth monthly. Not your income, not your paycheck, your net worth. Because that number tells you whether your financial position is actually improving over time, even slowly. Here's the thing. Most people think financial progress should feel exciting all the time, like some dramatic transformation where suddenly everything changes overnight. But real wealth usually doesn't look like that. Most of the time, it feels slow, quiet, repetitive, and honestly, kind of boring. That's exactly why most people quit. Because emotionally, humans want fast results. We want visible proof that our effort is working. But financially, the biggest rewards usually come from consistency, not intensity. One smart payday routine repeated every single month for 10 years can completely change your life. Not because of luck, not because of some secret investment strategy, but because small decisions repeated consistently become powerful over time. And this is where people finally separate themselves financially. Some people use every paycheck to temporarily escape stress. Others use every paycheck to slowly build freedom. That difference may seem small at first, but after years, the gap becomes massive. So the next time you get paid, pause for a moment before spending anything. Because your paycheck is more than money. It's a reflection of your priorities. And the people who eventually win financially are usually the people who learn how to control their emotions before their emotions control their money.